My hands were shaking as I sat in my car outside Nordstrom, watching my daughter-in-law walk out with 5 shopping bags hanging from her arms. 5 designer shopping bags. The same woman who had called me crying just that morning, begging for $2,000 because her mother's medication was too expensive and they couldn't afford it this month. I had wired her that money at 8 a.m. It was now 2:15 p.m. I couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe she had returned something and was using the store credit. Maybe I was jumping to conclusions. But as I watched her laugh on her phone, tossing those bags into the trunk of her car like they weighed nothing, something in my gut told me I wasn't wrong. I'm Maria Rodriguez, and I'm 58 years old. I spent 30 years as a nurse before I retired, so I've learned to trust my instincts when something feels off. And right now, everything about this situation felt very, very off. Let me back up a little. My son Marcus is 32, and he's always been the sweetest, most trusting soul you'd ever meet. He works as a software engineer, makes good money, and he's generous to a fault. 5 years ago, my husband passed away from a heart attack, and Marcus has been my rock ever since. We talk almost every day. He's my only child, and I'd do anything for him. 2 years ago, he met Ashley. She was 29, beautiful, blonde, and she told everyone she was building a career as a social media influencer and content creator. Marcus was smitten from day one. Within 6 months, they were married. I had my reservations, I'll admit that. Something about Ashley always felt performative, like she was playing a role. But Marcus was happy, and that's all I wanted for him. They live together in a nice apartment in Phoenix, not far from where I live. Marcus works from home most days, buried in his code and his projects. Ashley was always busy too, or so she said. She'd be out meeting with brands, doing photo shoots, attending influencer events. At least, that's what she told us. About a year into their marriage, the requests started. Ashley's mother, Diane, needed help with medical bills. Ashley's brother, Tyler, had lost his job and needed rent money. The family car broke down. There was always something. And Marcus, being Marcus, would send money without question. At first, it was a few $100s here and there. Then it became regular. $1,000 one month, $1,500 the next. I started noticing things. Ashley would mention in passing that they'd gone to a fancy restaurant or that she'd bought a new designer purse on sale. When I gently asked Marcus if they were doing okay financially with all the family help they were providing, he assured me everything was fine. Ashley's influencer work was starting to pay off, he said. They were managing. But something didn't sit right with me. I'm not the type of mother-in-law who meddles, I promise you that. I've always tried to give them their space, to let them build their life together. But when you've spent 3 decades as a nurse, you develop a 6th sense for when something's wrong. And every time I saw Ashley, that sense was screaming. 3 months ago, it all came to a head. I was at the mall looking for a birthday gift for Marcus. His birthday was coming up in 2 weeks, and I wanted to find him something special. I was walking past Nordstrom when I saw her. Ashley. She was standing near the entrance, wearing head-to-toe Lululemon, looking down at her phone. I almost called out to her, but something stopped me. She walked into Nordstrom, and I don't know what possessed me, but I followed. I kept my distance, pretending to browse the handbags near the entrance. I watched as Ashley made her way to the designer section. She wasn't browsing. She wasn't looking at price tags. She was shopping like someone who knew exactly what she wanted and didn't care what it cost. I watched her pick up a Gucci belt, a YSL wallet, a pair of designer sunglasses. She was laughing, talking to the sales associate like they were old friends. This wasn't the behavior of someone whose family was struggling financially. This was someone who shopped at Nordstrom regularly. I left before she saw me, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. That evening, Ashley called Marcus. I was at their apartment dropping off some homemade soup because Marcus had mentioned he'd been working long hours. I heard her voice through his phone, high-pitched and tearful. Her mother needed money for medication again. $2,000. It was urgent. Marcus didn't hesitate. He pulled up his banking app right there and transferred the money while I watched. After he hung up, I couldn't help myself. "Marcus, honey," I said carefully, "how often does Ashley's family need help like this?" He looked tired. "I don't know, Mom. Every few weeks. They've had a rough year. Ashley's dad isn't working much, and her mom has some health issues. Have you ever met her parents? He paused. Not yet. They live across town, and they're pretty private. Ashley says her mom gets anxious around new people. A red flag. A big one. But I couldn't just accuse his wife of lying without proof. That's not how you maintain a relationship with your adult child. So I did what any concerned mother would do. I decided to find out the truth myself. The next morning, I called my best friend Gloria. Gloria and I have been friends since nursing school, and if anyone would understand what I was planning, it was her. I told her everything. The shopping bags, the constant money requests, my suspicions. You need to investigate, Gloria said firmly. But you need evidence, Maria. You can't go to Marcus with just a gut feeling. He'll think you're being paranoid or jealous. She was right. So, we made a plan. The first thing I did was look at Ashley's social media. She had a public Instagram account with about 15,000 followers. Most of her posts showed a modest lifestyle, coffee at home, walks in the park, motivational quotes about building a business from the ground up. She looked like every other aspiring influencer, working hard to make it. But something Gloria said stuck with me. People who lie always slip up somewhere. You just have to find where. I started taking screenshots of Ashley's posts. I noticed something strange. Sometimes she'd post a photo showing designer items in the background, a nice handbag or expensive shoes. But within a few hours, those posts would disappear, replaced by more humble content. It was like she was maintaining two different images. That's when I decided to dig deeper. I'm not proud of this, but I created a fake Instagram account. I used a stock photo of a woman around Ashley's age and created a profile that looked like another influencer from Phoenix. I followed Ashley, and a few days later, she followed me back. Then I saw it. In her following list, there was another account. A private account with her first name and a different last name, only 97 followers. My heart was racing as I sent a follow request from my fake account, trying to look as legitimate as possible. 3 days later, she accepted. What I saw made my blood run cold. This account was everything the public one wasn't. Photos of Ashley in designer clothes, standing in front of expensive cars, holding luxury handbags. Pictures of her at high-end restaurants, lounging by resort pools, flying first class. The captions were even worse. Loving this Chanel bag my hubby bought me without even blinking. When Bay transfers another $2K like it's nothing. Best part about marrying a tech bro? The unlimited budget. There was even a photo of her and her brother Tyler, him wearing what looked like a genuine Rolex, caption reading, "Family that flexes together." I felt sick. I took screenshots of everything. But I knew this still wasn't enough. Ashley could claim the photos were old, or borrowed, or staged for content. I needed more. Over the next 2 weeks, Gloria and I became amateur private investigators. We started following Ashley when she left her apartment. We'd take turns sitting in my car or Gloria's, waiting to see where she went on days when she told Marcus she was working on content or helping her family. We followed her to Whole Foods, where she'd spend over $300 on organic groceries. We watched her get her nails done at a salon where manicures started at $80. We tracked her to her mother's house. That's where things got really interesting. Ashley's mother, Diane, didn't live in a rundown apartment or a struggling neighborhood. She lived in a beautiful 2-story house in a well-maintained suburban area, the kind of house that probably cost $500,000. There was a Mercedes GLE in the driveway. A Mercedes. That's a $70,000 car. That, Gloria said as we sat in my car half a block away, is not the home of people who can't afford medication. We watched as Ashley's brother Tyler arrived in his own car, a newer model pickup truck. We watched as the family sat on their back patio, visible through the yard, drinking what looked like expensive wine and laughing. This was not a family in crisis. This was a family living very, very well. But I still needed one more piece of evidence. I needed something that showed Ashley knew exactly what she was doing, that she was deliberately manipulating my son. I got it 2 days later. I had installed a recording app on my phone, the kind that activates when it picks up voices. I know it was invasive, and I know it was probably illegal in some ways, but I was desperate. I invited Ashley to lunch, just the two of us. I told her I wanted to get to know her better, to build our relationship. She agreed, probably because she thought it would be good to stay on my good side. We met at a cafe, and I kept my phone and my purse on the table between us, recording. I steered the conversation toward money, carefully, subtly. I mentioned that I was worried Marcus was working too hard, trying to support everyone. "Oh, he doesn't mind," Ashley said, waving her hand dismissively. "He makes great money, and honestly, my family has been through so much. He wants to help." "It must be hard for you," I said, "having to ask for help all the time." She looked at me for a moment, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Then she leaned in, like we were conspirators. "Can I be honest with you, Maria? Between us?" I nodded, trying to keep my expression sympathetic. "Marcus is the sweetest guy. He really is. But he's also kind of clueless about money. He doesn't notice things. Like, I could buy a $2,000 purse, and as long as I tell him I got it on sale or a brand sent it to me, he believes it. It makes things so much easier." My blood went cold, but I kept my face neutral. "Easier?" She laughed. Actually laughed. "Yeah. Look, I love him. I do. But I also have a lifestyle I want to maintain. My family has certain expectations, and Marcus is happy to provide. He feels good about helping people. So everyone wins, right?" I had her. Right there, in her own words, admitting that she was taking advantage of my son's generosity, that she was lying to him. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to that recording over and over again. Her voice, so casual, so unconcerned about the pain she was causing. My son was being used, manipulated, and he had no idea. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to tell Marcus everything, but I wasn't going to do it privately, where Ashley could spin the story or make excuses. I was going to do it in a way that left no room for denial. I called Marcus and told him I wanted to host a family dinner. A celebration, I said, for his upcoming birthday. I invited him and Ashley, and I told Ashley to invite her family too. I wanted everyone there. Marcus was surprised but pleased. He'd been wanting me to meet Ashley's parents for a while. "This is perfect, Mom," he said. "Thank you for making the effort." The effort. If only he knew. I spent 3 days preparing. I printed every screenshot from Ashley's secret Instagram. I printed photos Gloria and I had taken of the family house, the Mercedes, Tyler's Rolex. I organized everything into a folder, a complete evidence package. And I prepared a slideshow on my laptop, ready to display on my TV. The dinner was set for a Saturday evening. Everyone arrived on time. Diane turned out to be exactly what I expected. A well-dressed woman in her late 50s with expensive jewelry and an air of entitlement. Ashley's father, Robert, was quiet but wore a designer watch I recognized from my late husband's collection. Tyler showed up in a polo shirt and those same nice shoes I'd seen in the Instagram photos. We sat down to dinner. I'd made all of Marcus's favorites: pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade rolls. Everyone was polite, making small talk, laughing at appropriate moments. Marcus looked happy, sitting next to his wife, thinking this was finally the family bonding he'd been hoping for. I waited until everyone had finished eating. Then I stood up. "Before we have dessert," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I wanted to share something with everyone. Marcus, honey, I know your birthday isn't for another week, but I wanted to give you a special gift tonight." Marcus looked confused, but smiled. "Mom, you didn't have to." "I did," I interrupted gently. "This is important." I walked to the TV and connected my laptop. "I've put together a little slideshow. Some photos I've collected over the past few weeks." The first image appeared on the screen. It was Ashley walking out of Nordstrom with those 5 shopping bags. The timestamp showed the date and time, the same day she'd asked for $2,000 for her mother's medication. Marcus's smile faded. "Mom, what is this?" I clicked to the next image. Ashley at Whole Foods, cart full of expensive organic items. Next image, Diane's house, the beautiful 2-story with the Mercedes in the driveway. Next, screenshots from Ashley's secret Instagram, her captions bragging about his money. The room had gone completely silent. Ashley's face had turned white. Diane started to stand up, but I held up my hand. "Please, Let me finish. I went through every piece of evidence. The photos of Tyler's Rolex, the receipts showing luxury purchases on the same days as emergency money requests, the timeline of every time Ashley had asked for money over the past year, totaling $47,000. When I finished, I looked at Marcus. His face was a mixture of shock, hurt, and confusion. He was staring at Ashley, waiting for her to say something, to explain. "Marcus, I can explain," Ashley started, but her voice was shaking. "You told me your family was struggling," Marcus said quietly. His voice was so calm it was frightening. "You cried on the phone about your mother's medication. You said your brother lost his job." "We were helping them get back on their feet," Diane interjected, her voice sharp. "You can't possibly understand what it's like to—" "To what?" I cut her off. "To lie to someone who loves you? To manipulate his kindness? To laugh about how clueless he is?" Ashley's eyes went wide. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording from our lunch. Her voice filled the room, casual and careless. "Marcus is kind of clueless about money. I could buy a $2,000 purse, and he believes it. Everyone wins, right?" Marcus stood up so fast his chair fell backward. He wasn't looking at anyone. He just walked out of the dining room and into my guest room, closing the door behind him. Ashley started crying. Real tears now. Not the fake ones she'd used on the phone so many times. "I didn't mean it like that. I love him. I was just using him," I finished. "You were using him. All of you." I looked at Diane and Robert. "You lived in a $500,000 house and drove a Mercedes while taking money from my son for fake medical emergencies. You should be ashamed." Robert stood up, his face red. "We don't have to listen to this. Ashley, we're leaving." "No," Ashley said, still crying. "I need to talk to Marcus. I need to make him understand." "Understand what?" I asked. "That you've been lying to him for a year? That you've been laughing about it with your friends on Instagram? That you see him as a bank account instead of a human being?" Tyler finally spoke up, his voice quiet. "Ashley, maybe we should go." They left. All of them, Ashley included. She tried to knock on the guest room door, tried to get Marcus to talk to her, but he didn't answer. Finally, she left too, crying and texting him frantically, her phone lighting up over and over in her hands as she walked out. I stood outside the guest room door for a long time. Finally, I heard Marcus's voice, rough and broken. "You can come in, Mom." He was sitting on the edge of the bed, his face in his hands. I sat next to him and put my arm around his shoulders, the way I had when he was little and the world felt too big. "I'm so stupid," he said. "No," I said firmly. "You're not stupid. You're kind. You're trusting. Those are good qualities, Marcus. She took advantage of them, but that doesn't make you stupid." How did I not see it? He looked at me, and his eyes were red. "All those signs, Mom. The shopping, the lifestyle. How did I miss it? Because you're busy. Because you were focused on your work, on trying to make her happy. Because when you love someone, you want to believe the best about them." "I gave them $47,000, he whispered. $47,000. "I know, honey. I know." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Thank you for showing me. I know that must have been hard. I know you probably thought I'd be angry with you." "I was terrified you'd be angry with me," I admitted. "But I couldn't watch you be hurt anymore. I couldn't watch her use you." "I need to file for divorce," he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. I think that's wise. The next week was hard. Marcus moved out of their apartment and stayed with me. He filed for divorce and hired a lawyer who demanded repayment of the money. Ashley's family tried to negotiate at first, claiming they'd spent it on legitimate expenses. But when Marcus's lawyer presented all the evidence I'd collected, including the recording, they realized they had no choice. They agreed to pay back $30,000 over 2 years. It wasn't everything, but it was something. Marcus said he just wanted to be done with them. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Ashley tried to apologize several times, leaving voicemails and sending long text messages about how she'd made mistakes but really did love him. Marcus never responded. He told me that whether she loved him or not didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that she'd chosen to hurt him over and over, and that wasn't love. He started therapy. He said he needed to understand why he'd been so blind, why he'd been so willing to ignore the signs. His therapist helped him see that his kindness wasn't a flaw, but that he needed to have better boundaries. That helping people was good, but not when those people were taking advantage. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Marcus told me he was ready to start dating again. I was nervous, I'll admit. I didn't want him to get hurt again, but I also knew I couldn't protect him from everything. He was an adult, and he needed to make his own choices. He met someone through a friend. Her name was Emma, and she was a third-grade teacher. When he told me about their first date, I heard something in his voice I hadn't heard in years. Joy. Real, uncomplicated joy. "She's different, Mom," he said. She insisted on splitting the check. She asked about my day, my work, what I liked to do for fun. The whole conversation wasn't about her or what she needed. It was just nice. Last month, Marcus asked if Emma could come to Sunday dinner at my place. I said yes, of course, though my stomach was in knots. I wanted so badly for this to be different, for her to be different. Emma arrived with a homemade apple pie. She wasn't wearing designer clothes or expensive jewelry. She wore a simple sundress and sandals, and she had flour on her wrist from baking. "I hope you like apple pie, Mrs. Rodriguez," she said, smiling warmly. "Marcus mentioned it's your favorite." We sat down to dinner, and I watched them together. Really watched. The way Emma listened when Marcus talked about his work. The way she laughed at his jokes but also challenged his ideas. The way Marcus looked at her, open and hopeful but also cautious. He'd learned something from Ashley, I realized. He'd learned to look more carefully. After dinner, Emma helped me clean up, even though I told her she didn't have to. As we stood at the sink, she said quietly, "Marcus told me what happened with his ex-wife. I just want you to know that I would never... I have my own career. I have my own life. I don't need someone to take care of me financially." I looked at her, this kind young woman who taught children for a living and brought homemade pie to meet her boyfriend's mother. "I believe you," I said. And I did. Later, as they were leaving, Marcus pulled me aside. "So? What do you think?" I smiled at him. "I think she's lovely. But Marcus, if I ever notice any red flags..." "I know, Mom," he said, hugging me. "You'll tell me, and this time, I promise I'll listen from day one." As I watched them walk to Marcus's car, Emma's hand in his, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. My son had been hurt, badly, but he'd survived it. He'd learned from it. And now he was giving himself another chance at happiness, but with his eyes wide open this time. Sometimes the hardest thing a mother can do is tell her child a truth they don't want to hear. Sometimes love means creating conflict, means showing evidence that will break their heart, means being the bad guy in the moment so they can be protected in the long run. I don't regret what I did. I don't regret following Ashley, collecting evidence, exposing her lies in front of everyone. Some people might say I overstepped, that I should have stayed out of it. But when you see someone you love being hurt, being used, being lied to day after day, you don't just stand by and watch. You do something about it. And if I had to do it all over again, knowing how painful that dinner would be, knowing the look on my son's face when he saw those photos, I would make the same choice every single time. Because that's what love does. It protects. It fights. It tells the truth, even when the truth is ugly. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is having the courage to show someone what they can't see themselves, no matter how much it hurts in the moment.